This is the Inclusion Conversation. I'm your host, Grace Young Foster, founder and CEO of the Inclusion Initiative. I'm an adoptee, I'm a foster care alum, and I'm passionate about elevating our communities. It's time we're included and visible in the conversations about work, careers, and just life. Let's be visible and let's be loud. Join me now. Hey everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Inclusion Conversation podcast. I'm your host, Grace Young Foster, and so pleased to have you all with us today. I'm really excited for this conversation as well, because it's with somebody that I met at the beginning of my journey in founding the Inclusion Initiative. Maria Douglas joined one of my very early events, and we've just been in touch ever since. And it's been a real joy and pleasure having her support, her in community, having just someone with shared lived experience to have on this journey with me. And so when she responded that she wanted to be a guest on the podcast, it just felt like great alignment. And so I'm so excited for our conversation today. Welcome, Maria. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank
I got
you
a little emotional when you were saying that because I remember right at the beginning of your entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of feels like 5 years ago.
I'm sure it does.
But you were one of the very first people that I met along this journey, being a founder of this company. And so, before we dive into our conversation, just want to share with our audience a little bit about you. So Maria Douglas is a transracial Korean adoptee, currently working on her master's degree in social work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Maria labels herself as a community servant. Love that. She is vice chair of the Monroe County Women's Commission, advisor for the Bloomington's branch of the NAACP Youth Council, and a member of the National Organization for Women. She co-chairs the Hoosier Asian American Power. Yes. Maria works every single day to embody the mantras of, if you see something, say something, better together, and if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? Oh, wow. Wow.
I may have stolen that last one from RuPaul, RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. And I want to dive into that, and we will in a little bit. And it'll be very interesting to hear why those three mantras are so important to you. But before we get into that, would love to hear a little bit about how you experience your adoptee identity and how you've journeyed through it so far.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually new for me, new within the last 5 years. So I am supposedly 49. We know as adoptees how that goes. Supposedly 49. And so for 45 years or so, I was not connected to my adoption story. I had major internalized racism. And so my adoption story is like many others, that I was left abandoned on the steps of a government building in Seoul, and that I went to a foster home. So I was like, I'm not a foster, but I kind of am, because I was in a foster home, supposedly, if that's true, in Korea. And then I was adopted to a white German Scandinavian family in Minnesota in 1976. So I arrived when I was about 8 months old. So I've been here and, Americanized, culture-wise. And in my baby book, it does say that I would say Uma every now and then, or I don't know how, the exact pronunciation,
It's
but my
Oma. Yeah.
Oma, thank you. So my adoptive mother did um, document that. So I hold on to that a little bit too. I had forgotten about it until I was kind of looking back in my baby book. So it was, my adoption was always portrayed to me as a great thing that I should be grateful for. And not it wasn't, they didn't necessarily emphasize that I need to be grateful, but that was the vibe, that, those were the vibes. Definitely the vibes of extended family and people outside our family. Oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you're so, Um, so I grew up thinking, oh, this is a great thing. I'm so special. But then as I grew up, I didn't feel super special. I felt, because I was raised in a predominantly, like 99%, I would say, white community in northern Hamilton County in Indiana. So we moved from Minnesota to Indiana when I was 5. And so I grew up literally among the cornfields.
Yeah.
So, you know, my mother, they were not prepared to deal with racism, I don't think. And what my mother told me was, um, just we were good Lutherans. So we turn the other cheek and we ignore and we take the high road and things like that. So I just took all the harassment and racism that did come my way almost daily in high school. So I came to school at Indiana University. I thought I would find my people. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Woo, I'm going to find my people," because I know there's a big international community here. And so it was very clear, very quickly, that I didn't have a people because I could not speak Korean. I had maybe had kimchi like once a year when my parents took me to the International Festival in Indianapolis. Um, and so it was just, that was kind of a bummer, and I hadn't really talked to anybody about it. So that was, again, all internalized, right? I was just kind of like, well, okay, here I am just with all these white people again and just me. So that's just kind of how I went through life, very, assimilating, trying to belong, trying to fit in, very people pleasing. I'm not gonna lie though, I had a little rebellious streak every now and then. It was just something, just a little disruptor every now and then. And so I had to like navigate that. And so, flash forward through, getting married and having children. I stayed here in Bloomington, Indiana. And I actually was a highly, highly functioning alcoholic for probably 12 to 15 years, if I'm
Wow.
honest. Yeah. And I talk about it as much as I can. Because people are shocked. Like when I came out, when I said I'm sober, like blah, 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 people were
Yeah.
like, oh, wait, what, was there a problem?
They
Like,
had
what
no
was,
idea.
I had no idea. And, and now these days I get up in the morning, I'm like, how did I do that? But anyway, um, so part of the sobriety, I didn't do AA or a program or anything. I just did a lot of reading, a lot of podcasts, a lot of TikToks, a lot of books, um, talking to people that I know that are in recovery, and just kind of created my own thing. I mean, I was white knuckling it for a while. So anyway, because of that, then I started, really delving deep as far as, trauma, as far as, what was I trying to self medicate? What was I trying to uh, ignore and push away? So it was through that then I started looking at my adoption. And
Yeah.
at that same time, and this person too, he's in Indianapolis, Patrick Armstrong started posting on LinkedIn, or I started noticing. He may have posted before, but I started noticing his posts, and I'm like, talking about his adoption and his internalized racism. And he's, like I said, just in Indianapolis, which is here in the capital of Indiana. And I was like, wait, I that that's my story. Like I resonate with this so much, even though he's like 15 years younger, 15, 20 years younger. Just like I said, the growing up in Indiana, the internalized racism, being people pleasing, trying to fit in, ignoring and moving as far away from anything Asian and Korean as possible because that's embarrassing, it's shameful, it's all these feelings. And then here, unfortunately, here in Bloomington, Indiana, and I believe it was 22, if not early 23, a young Chinese woman was stabbed in the head on a public transportation bus.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt, because I was, starting along that journey and in sobriety, allowing myself to feel feelings instead of masking them, I was rocked by that like I had never been rocked before. When there were mass shootings, of Asian people in Atlanta or Georgia and in LA and things like that. I was like, that's over there. And like, this was in my hometown. This is where my children are, my children are half Korean and are Korean presenting.
Yeah.
And it rocked me. I was having so many feelings. I was angry. I was sad. I am a person of action though. So I was kind of like, oh, antsy. Like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm so new into this journey. I'm barely claiming myself. Like, how can I go, do something for somebody else? But then one of my good friends that I had actually reached out to, just reach out to with the purpose of becoming friends, because I knew she was Korean, because I literally have, up until like 23, I only knew 3 Korean people. And so I reached out to her specifically. I was April Hennessy. She's a wonderful community servant here as well. And I said, this is how I'm feeling. What do I do? Like, what are you doing? Like, I can't. And she said, well, you need to come and join this group. And so she got me involved in NAPOF, which is a national organization. And it's been great from there. I'm a big believer in that shame only goes away when you shed light on it. So I talk about this stuff as much as possible. So yeah, I feel like I'm almost fully conscious, right? But every now and then, trauma triggers, as just randomly come up. You're like, oh, okay, well, there's something else I need to heal, and things like that. That's where I am.
Oh yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, it's really complex to tell our stories because there's so much of it, but also, it's not like the full breadth of the story that we always want to share, right? So like, how do we honor ourselves and provide the pieces that are relevant, but also hold the pieces just for us that we need to hold? And so that was beautiful, and really, really appreciate you sharing your experience and your journey and the things that you went through with us and our audience, because conversations like these are exactly what helps us understand. And so I really appreciate you sharing all of that, and want to dive in a little bit into, like we talked about your mantras and your when we introduced you. And I know that has come about because of just obviously your awakening, right, to your adoptee identity and what that means to you, and how you are navigating that, and the narrative that you're now claiming for yourself, and the narrative that is true to you, right, that you are shining into the world, versus the standard, very dominant narratives of adoption and fostering that are the saviorism, that you should be grateful, that you're so lucky, all of that kind of stuff. Well, we are rejecting that as adoptees and fosters, not in a negative way, but more so because we're reclaiming, right? And we're shining a light on our own narratives of actually, this is my experience and this is how I feel. And this is what it's like for me as the person who's the adoptee and who's the foster. And so, when I look at your mantras of if you see something, say something, better together. And if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? Talk to us a little bit about why these resonate and what led to them unfolding for you as your mantras.
Hmm. You're right. The mantras unfolded through my journey. And I also mentioned that little disruptor that would come up every now and then in my people pleasing life. And so um, I feel better in my body and in my mind when I am doing something, when I am, and that, can be a little toxic too. So I keep an eye on it. But if you see something, like when I was being harassed every day in my high school, somebody could have said something. I mean, I had friends, but the people that harass you, they pick and choose when you're the most vulnerable, right? But there were people around. Um, I think it would have been very healthy and I would have felt very supported throughout my life if I saw my birth parents, if I saw my friends stand up for me and at least say, I'm sorry that happened, validating my feelings, or even standing up and saying, that was totally inappropriate, that was racist, or whatever, acknowledging that something had happened instead of just being like, oh, shh, like keep it quiet, like, no, let's just keep moving, type of thing. So if you see something, you have to say something. You have to, not just for one reason, two reasons, for a lot of reasons that you may not even know. People are watching you. Your children are watching you. The Your peers are watching you. And so, if you're another kind of mantra, if you're going to stand for something, are you really standing for something? Right. So, if you're going to stand for something, stand for it. Stand for it.
Yeah.
I mean, better together. I believe that in general, for advocacy purposes, for addressing social justice issues. And I really believe that for us, for the adoptees and foster community, alum community. Because the things that you describe, when you're reflecting back to me what I've said or asking me a question, are things that only another adoptee would know to say or to ask, because and it's no fault of anybody's, because your experience is your experience. And I feel like a lot of us grew up so maybe not so, but somewhat isolated, and if not like physically isolated, but emotionally and mentally isolated, right? So if we can come together, like I'm getting goosebumps right now. If we can come together to take a stand, to educate, to say this is not okay. This is my story. This is that thing. This is my story. The reclamation. I had no idea you could do it. Like I had no idea until Patrick and you, I think, talked about reclaiming your. I was like, what? What? What does that mean? Oh my gosh. And that was been one of the most empowering things, I think, is reclaiming my story. Like it's my story, because it was all my parents' story. My mom
Yeah.
was the more extroverted one, if you can't tell already. But so the first thing I did, because it was tangible, it was something. I'm like, I'm not celebrating my birthday anymore because that's a
Mm.
fake day. I remember when I asked my mom growing up, how do you know that that was my birthday? Oh, they just knew, when they found you, the doctors. And when you're a kid, you're like, oh, doctors can do anything, we can, but we don't have rings like trees. You can't like count how many years, right? So finally, when I was older, she said it was the best guess. So that hit kind of different, right? So I decided
Mhm.
I'm not celebrating my birthday, and my kids are all worried, like, how are we going to know how old you are? Like, how are we? I was like, I will tell you. So that was one of the small but also big things to reclaim my story. And then if you can't love yourself, and you can't love anybody else, and I am so still working through that. I think I always will be, because couldn't love myself. I didn't love myself because I didn't even know who I was. Right? I was me. The me that I was before my awakening was in relation to my mother, was in
Mhm.
relation to what I did for my family, in relation to how I appear in society, um, was always in relation to other people or environments, right? Not me. So I really, have taken time to figure out who I am. And that little disruptor I talked about, I realized when I was really looking at this, I realized that I may have gotten that from my birth parents and or my early foster mother. Somebody who touched me early in life, because my parents are not disruptors. Nobody in my family, they're very Lutheran, very love, no hate, but very Lutheran, very conservative, very let's get along to, go along to get along. Let's not make waves. So where did I get this, little disruptor situation? So I decided that I'm going to foster it, that I like cultivate it.
Yep.
That is possibly something that was given to me, passed down to me, biologically, and so I'm going to cultivate it. And so also, so you have to know yourself first, and you're always figuring yourself out. You're never, oh, that's totally me, but you know more about yourself, and you work on loving yourself, just like you
Yeah, and it's
work
a
on anything
journey.
else.
It's a
Hmm.
journey. Yeah. I don't, I think you do arrive, but you continue to grow it and it
That's it.
continues to deepen. Like that's what I've been learning these past few years. And one of the things that really, for me, helped so much was really starting my own family and growing my own family and helped me unlock a little bit more of self-love, because I had the same thought. How can I love this little person, this little human I just created, if I can't even love myself to the fullest? I'm still working on it. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, I think your mantra is spot on and your reflection on that is spot on. And I want to pivot a little bit. So we're all transracial, transnational adoptees from Korea. We all actually grew up in the Midwest. You two grew up in Indiana. And, Patrick is a friend of mine, really admire his work. And I'm so glad, right, that he continues to be a voice for our communities. And, I'm really proud of him for doing that work in Indiana. It's really hard. It's
Yes.
hard being a person of color there. It's hard being a person of color that grew up thinking you're white your entire young adult life. And then realizing, coming to the realization that no, I actually am very proud to be a person of color. And I need to undo all this internalized racism that I've learned, all these learned behaviors of racism against me and other people of color. That work is really hard. And it's hard to stay in that community and continue to do that work and be loud and be more of a public face and figure doing that work. And so I'm really proud of Patrick for doing that. Thank you so much for being brave and being dedicated to making sure, right, that our communities have representation, have visibility, have a voice in these places where there's not a lot of us. And where I was going with all that too is that, you know, you being in Indiana, I know that you were in fundraising in the nonprofit space in Indianapolis. I was a nonprofit fundraiser too, which is something
Yeah.
else that we share in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super interesting sector, right? To
Mhm,
be
mhm.
who we are, all of our intersectionality, and to be fundraisers for, you know, or organizations serving communities that really need a lot of support and resources. It's a weird dynamic. It is very weird navigating through all of that. And, you know, I learned a lot, right, about power structures and systems and how people of color experience this versus the people who, you know, right, were funding these organizations. And so it would be great to hear a little bit about why that work for you, like why that career path for you, and did your, you know, journey through your, you know, coming into your own as an adoptee, like has that impacted your career decisions and your career pathway?
Yeah, so honestly, that development position was kind of just a blip on my radar. I did it only for maybe a year, almost 2 years, and it was for a domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking organization, which I still support, and I still feel very passionate about those issues. And yes, it was very interesting to interact with people who had the finance to help and their perspectives on what actually goes on. So yes. However, throughout my life, and I'm curious if you feel this way too, because I know I feel like you were in some sort of, well, fundraising and development and kind of salesy situations. I felt like I want to put this on my resume, but it wouldn't make sense to some people, but that I feel like I've been selling myself. I've been marketing myself. I've been developing myself for my whole life, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, look, I'm good enough. Look, I can do this. Look, I can participate in your uh, white culture. I know all the jokes. I've seen all the movies. Like I can do, I do this. So even though that development role was very short, I feel like I've been doing that work, for a long time. And I mean, I still kind of am. So now I do have that advocacy bug. So I do co-chair, as you mentioned in my bio, a nonprofit called Hoosier Asian American Power. And yes, that is a Indiana statewide organization. So we are trying to organize and mobilize not just adoptees, but any Asian identifying person, woman in Indiana. Um, and I do want to emphasize woman because we our three pillars are reproductive justice, um, healthy democracy, and racial racial equity. But that repo part. So I really have the advocacy bug. I think it fits in with all the experience that I've had. I've had a lot of different careers, but it's brought me to this place and this level of comfort. Public speaking. I love a good public comment, like city council and things like that. Talking with you. I've done a few other podcasts as well. So, after I finish my master's in social work, I think that I'm going to continue along the path of advocacy, policy, and such and this dovetails with your actual question about development. That if we don't have the funding, if we don't have the policy, if we don't have, the support of local and federal government, then the actual work, there'll be no money, there won't be any resources to do the actual work. So because I am able to public speak, because I am able to approach anybody that I want to approach, for better or for worse, I guess. I think my gifts are better used there, and versus the clinical, therapy side.
Right.
Now, that licensure and whatnot will always be there. So if I, need to do that, then I can do that. But I really want to make, like you said, Indiana I want to empower Indiana's Asian Americans to let their voices be heard.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's interesting how you brought up that you feel like you've been selling yourself your whole life to get you to this place. And, I feel like for so many of us who are adoptees and fosters, yeah, that feeling is very real. We're always trying to prove our worth, prove that we belong there, prove that we should stay in the home that we were placed into. And it's interesting how that really can impact how we end up where we are in our professional journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And, for some of us, that means like we have done a lot of things in a lot of different jobs, right? Because change is all we know. That's especially true for fosters, like get placed so much in many different homes and maybe never have a permanent one. For some adoptees, it means that we stay at one job forever because that security is like
That's
something
right.
we cling to. And it just, I have found and heard from so many in our community, doing this work that the thread that really is true for nearly everyone in our community, right, is that we'll never fully feel secure in where we are. And so we're always either, pushing to stay or pushing for more. Whatever that push is, we're constantly pushing ourselves. And, it can lead to so much uncertainty in our careers, but also there's a lot of missed opportunity, right? Because we're not given the tools and the support systems that we need to be able to really understand this about ourselves and then navigate it throughout our professional journeys, our personal journeys as adults. Just everything we encounter as adults, it's all new territory for us, and yet there's not a ton of support out there for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it's so important to have advocates and just real people with like fire in their bellies like you in our communities to help adoptees and fosters see, right? Like, no, you're not stuck in that place, or you don't have to keep changing. Like, there is space for you. You are enough. Like, you are valuable just as you are. And that's something like, as professionals, we definitely need to hear that a lot. So thanks so much for, just sharing your professional journey a little bit and being that voice and advocate for adoptees and fosters in Indiana. I love it. And so
in Indiana, one quick thing little nugget that I do want to share is something that I have decided that I've always, we talk a lot about, as adoptees, we talk a lot about belonging and fitting in and things like that. And I can't remember where I read it, but I don't worry about belonging anymore because I belong to myself.
Yeah.
So wherever I go, I belong because I'm with myself. I'm with myself. And that's that whole part of loving yourself as well.
Yeah. And when we can get support and affirmation and validation of that, then we're able to really pursue opportunities that we never would have before, right? When
That's
you
right.
feel like you can belong to yourself and you're secure in yourself, yeah, That's amazing. That's
That's right.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk for a couple minutes about how you want to encourage our audience to practice real self-care and self-love. Just some of your insights, right, from an adoptee perspective. And then we're going to pivot after that to rapid fire questions.
Okay. Okay.
Share with us what your insights.
So I talk about this because this is how I live my life. I don't pour from my cup. We always, as women, I always heard, never pour from an empty cup. And I'm like, well, guess what? I'm not pouring from any cup. So what you're getting right now, Grace and the audience, and what my family gets, and what my 3 dogs get, people that I come into contact with, they get my overflow. And does that sound selfish? Maybe. But if you reframe it in that the overflow is the best of you, that's the best that I have to give, is that overflow. That's how I live my life. I don't pour from my cup. I keep my cup full. And the things I do to keep my cup full is I did start a meditation practice, and I used to totally be like, oh my gosh, these people that meditate, like, please, just, but only 10, 15 minutes. If, I'm not, it's what I'm doing for myself. It's me in my head, me with my body, for me, nobody else. I make sure that I wash my face and brush my teeth every day. Because honestly, and as a new mother,
Yep.
like, sometimes that doesn't get done. Or sometimes you go to bed with your makeup on and like furry teeth and such, and you're like, oh, well, I'll get it tomorrow. But it's taking care of yourself. I know when I need to move slower. As you can probably tell, I talk fast, I move fast, I walk fast. So I really try, and I've noticed you do this too. You speak very slow, not very slow, but slower and very intentionally. And so when I'm feeling sped up or something like that, I'm like, okay, we're slowing down. It's mindful. We're doing things a little, we're moving my hand a little bit slower, that sort of thing. Also, it's just stretching and listening to my body, what my body needs. Is it hungry? Yeah, I'm going to feed it. Is it, does it need to move? I'm going to do that. Does it need to sit still? I'm going to do that. I reframed what I feel productivity is. I reframed, well, I'm not busy. I use my time and and energy in a lot of different ways, but I'm not busy.
Yeah.
I
It's
only
things
do
that are
things that I want
meaningful
to do.
you. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So those are just a few things. I could go on and on.
I love that. And I love it's, I think the key that you're really sharing is just listening to yourself and like honoring that specific need that you have in the moment. And it's okay. Like, you can prioritize yourself. It's totally okay.
And you should.
And
Because you should. And I mean,
yes.
growing up Lutheran, it was like God first, and I have a very personal relationship with God. My faith is so strong, and I know He wants me to take care of myself, because then I'm my best self for others. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm probably well, I know I'm a crappy person.
Well, thanks for sharing those insights. They're very wise and they're very simple, and like you can apply it right now, which is so helpful. So let's pivot a little bit to rapid fire. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Ready? Favorite food?
Pizza.
You are
I'm
literally,
American.
you're the 4th person in a row to say that.
Oh, really?
There's
Okay.
something
Yeah.
about it. There's something about pizza that's very real.
I ate it one whole day. That's all I ate. It was pizza one day recently.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've done that too. So, what's your superpower as an adoptee?
My voice.
Elaborate a little bit.
That I am an open book. I will talk about it. I will tell you exactly how it feels. I will tell you what is needed. Yeah. Does that answer that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a vulnerable place to be, but it's so critical, right, to moving us forward. So thank you for that. Thank you for your voice. What did you dream of doing when you were a kid?
Oh gosh, this is so embarrassing. I literally either wanted to be a model, I'm like 5'4". I'm like a 5'4" on a good day, but I was gonna
print model.
I wanted to be a model, or an attorney.
Oh, wow. Very different.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going to do advocacy work, which is kind of in line with the attorney route. So interesting. Interesting.
And I can dress fabulously when I do it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, you look fabulous now. I love the print on your sweater. What's one thing on your bucket list?
Oh no. I'll skydive.
Ooh, that's scary.
I know. And that's why I should do it.
Okay. Well, you send me videos. I'm not going to do that, but you send me the video. I would love to see that.
You do you, and I'll send you the video.
Awesome. Okay. And then finally, what is a piece of advice that you want to share with our audience?
A piece of advice, and this is important. I've said it already in this podcast, but the piece of advice would be take care of yourself first. That whole oxygen mask situation on the airplane, if you've flown, put your mask on first and then attend to your children or your loved ones. That's real.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you. Well, thank you, Maria, so much for being on our show. Thank you for sharing just your story, your perspective, being a voice for our community, and really being an advocate for, just our society as a whole, right? You're not an advocate just for adoptees, but your mantra, right? Together, we're better together. Like, you're really living that. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and insight. And if folks want to find you, I know they can find you here on LinkedIn. Anywhere else you want them to, reach out and get connected?
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for the space. You were part of my awakening as well. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I know it's not easy. So make sure you're taking care of yourself and keep on keeping on. And if I can support you in any way, let me know. So LinkedIn, yes. On Facebook, Maria J. Douglas. And then on Instagram, it's What is Maria Doing? And then on TikTok, which I do post every now and then, it's What is Maria Doing Now?
Oh, I love that. What is Maria doing?
I don't know. Yeah.
That's very intriguing. Amazing. Well, everyone listening, please reach out to Maria, give her a follow, and can't wait to just see you, like, where your journey takes you. Congratulations on almost finishing your master's. That's a long road. So congratulations there. And we're just really rooting for you and cannot wait to see all that unfolds for you in the future. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. If you liked this conversation, if you like the Inclusion Initiative, please be sure to follow our show, comment, like, share, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, share, and follow us. Check out our show notes to know where to find us on social, and our website is theinclusioninitiative.com. If you're an adoptee of color or a foster care alum and you want to join our professional community, it's free, by the way. Hit me up via DM, or you can find our email in the show notes. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.